Hello, everyone, and welcome to Education Leadership for a Digital World, a Digital Promise webinar series that's supported by the Wallace Foundation. I'm Ann Duffy. I'm with Education First, and today's webinar is Zooming to Zoom, how NASSP converted a live event to a virtual event in 4 days. Our expert panelists today are Beverly Hutton, the Deputy Executive Director for NASSP, that's the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and Meghan Park, Program Manager at NASSP. They're going to share their experience converting a large face-to-face meeting into a virtual event, which happened right as COVID-19 impacted travel across the country in March. Thank you so much for joining us, Beverly and Meghan. Hello.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Meghan. Hi, thank y'all so much for being here. Before we start our discussion, let me just do a quick few housekeeping items. I'm going to be asking questions, and Beverly and Meghan are going to be telling their story, but please do post your own questions into the Q&A. You can find the Q&A, it's next to your chat function on the toolbar at the bottom. And if you need any technical support, just please chat there as well. I'll be monitoring those questions throughout, and I'll pop them into our conversation. And we'll also have time at the very end for a dedicated question and answer period. So I am really excited to get started to talk about this conversation because I've had the privilege of working with Beverly and Meghan on this project and actually was part of the craziness that was the conversion from a live in-person event to a virtual event. So Beverly, NASSP partners with the Wallace Foundation to support the Principal Pipeline Learning Community, which is the project we were working on, which is a network of 90 districts that are working to improve their school leadership by working across the domains of leader standards, principal preparation, principal supervisors, and other aspects of the principal pipeline. So it's a complex project, and in this project, each district, one of all 90 plus, had a team, and then the Wallace Foundation brought these teams together for multiple in-person meetings. I supported 3 teams in this work, and from my experience, districts really gained a lot from the interactions that they had with their peers during these convenings, which were all face-to-face. So, Beverly, we had this meeting planned in early March, and everybody was on their way to New York City for a few days of high quality learning and networking, but clearly that didn't happen. You and your team had to convert that meeting, which was going to be like 230 people, into a virtual event in really just a few days. So we want to dig into how you did that and what you learned from that. So first off, it was a crazy time, but what was it like when you first realized that that in-person event couldn't happen?
Well, besides from the initial panic, I first thought of, honestly, Ann, I thought all these printed materials that we had to plan to ship up there and all of the preparation for that part of it was the first thing I thought of. And then I said, okay, what could be the best alternative? So Meghan and I just began to sit to talk with one another, just to ideate about it. And honestly, it was Meghan who reminded me that our 10 consultants who are a part of the project, they had already been using Zoom as they were interacting with their districts. So we knew that there were people who were familiar with it that could work with it. We also knew that we only needed 10 to 12 breakout rooms, so there were people there that could do it. And then we just scratched our heads. If I tell you that I didn't have a sleepless night, that wouldn't be true, because I did. I'm like, what are we gonna do? But then I remembered, you know, NASSP, we sponsored the Principal PLC for the Wallace Foundation a couple of years prior to that. And what we used design thinking methodology to work with principals and assistant principals to help them identify issues and challenges in their environment and to try to provide solutions. And one of the first steps in that process is empathy. So we started to think, what do we want the attendee experience to be? And so then we just started thinking about it, ideating, and then trying to design a plan. And I have to say, we knew Zoom could work. We had done it before with smaller groups, and you all were using it. But we hadn't done that with the Wallace Foundation. And so when we did approach them with it, I have to tell you, I appreciate their trust in us, because, you know, they hadn't been using it the way that we were going to use it for this event. And they agreed. And that's much appreciated. So once we got to there, then we had to start looking at the actual elements of the program. And so after we got the platform taken care of, then we had to start thinking about the program and the execution. What would it be like on that day, considering what the attendee would feel and or experience. So that's how we came up with what's on the slide. We had to look at all the elements from the face-to-face, and considering the program, the meeting goals, the main, there were basically 3 goals to the meeting. The information that would be shared, the opportunity for the people in the districts to share, and then the opportunity to network. So we took those 3 and we put them on this side of the chart, and we just started to work it. We pulled out the program was set, so we pulled out the elements one by one and put them on the other side. Mm-hmm. And once we got that done, then we had to go to our facilitators. The facilitators, and I have to say this, I mean, we did the back end part, and Meghan is really the hero of that, but the facilitators made the difference. They were the people, you all had to be the people who were engaging with the participants and making sure that the experience was good. So we knew that the next consideration was the facilitators. How do we make them, number one, comfortable with this really quick switch? How do we make it easy? You know, we were concerned about their comfort and their ease. So the facilitators guide was key. And that comprehensive guide talked about the expectations. It established the norms for the meeting, the technology shift in the meeting, and then even standardizing presentations. Because when you have 24, 12, how many people were going to be facilitating, we wanted to make sure that the quality of the presentations were consistent. So then Meghan and I developed the slides, the basic slides, I call them, with all of the main information that everyone needed to make sure that they presented, and then gave that out so that the facilitators would be able to customize that based on their own styles. And then the run-through was important. We had a whole separate meeting. The run-through of this is the agenda. This is what the day is going to look like. This is what you have to do. And then the Zoom provided the one single sign-on, because we wanted the ease of it. And then we started to think about the attendee experience. What are the engagement strategies we need to make sure that people are feeling included? And then thinking in the design thinking way, what do we want people who participate in this to say about this event when it was over? And we wanted them to walk away saying that it was well planned, it was organized, it was easy, you know, sign on, the technology was easy, that they learned something, and that they had an opportunity to network. And those are all the things that, I mean, and that was 4 days of, I think, Meghan, wouldn't you say that's almost all we did for the next 4 days, those 4 days? We just kept massaging it to find out what was the best. And I, honestly, after we put that together, the meeting that we had with you all, Ann, the facilitators, to ask questions, to add some, you know, suggestions, we knew that we had a lot of input, a lot of voices. And I would say that was all we did for 4 days.
Well, let me actually pick up, because you talked about a few different components. You talked about the program, which was, you know, in place and people had expectations about participating. And then you talked about all the pieces of preparation that went into it, both from sort of the people that were involved, but also the technology. And then this critical piece which I love, this design thinking question, which is like, what is the experience we want people to have? And how do we help them make that pivot as they go forward? So I just, this great, Megan, you brought this cartoon into the conversation and I just love it, which is this cartoon that's on, for those of you who aren't on video, really speaks to the challenge of having an agenda. So you have our typical meeting facilitator saying the agenda for this meeting is to try to figure out why we're having this meeting. And that is so true all the time, but even in a virtual world, right? So we already had this robust agenda, Megan, that was on the table that everybody was prepared to do. So from your perspective, what really needed to be different regarding the agenda and the other components in order to make this successful for the attendees?
Well, as you mentioned, so originally this in-person meeting was supposed to span over 2 days. It was full days, 8 hours. And Beverly and I spoke and I said, we cannot expect people to sit in front of their computer for 8 hours, even with breaks. As you mentioned, we had 90 districts all across the country, including Alaska and Hawaii. So that meant we can't start at 9 in the morning Eastern because it's bedtime for these people. And so these were the considerations, the technical considerations we had to make in altering our agenda. What was great about the pre-planning process, and this is going to come up again thematically again, is that planning is key for virtual meetings. I think it's key for any meeting, but for a successful virtual meeting, it's a lot more planning, but it will be a lot more fruitful if everyone has a role and knows what they're doing. And so as Beverly touched upon, I knew the facilitators were great. We didn't have to touch that aspect, but we had to change the aspects of sessions and how long they could last. And, you know, we usually typically have meals. So that meant breaking for mealtime, but then having 90 districts across the board, when is an appropriate time to break for meals? So it's all this kind of thinking. But at the end of the day, we knew that the goals could be met by meeting online. And that's what's most important. If you don't feel like your goal of this meeting can be met virtually, you shouldn't be having a Zoom meeting.
You know what? I wish we could bring that slide up. Can we bring the cartoon slide back up again, if possible? Because when you look at that slide, it's like it's all wrong. I mean, let me say this: this pandemic is not an interruption until we get back to normal. It's a disruption that's creating a new normal. And it's making us look at everything differently. If you look at the picture, you have people sitting around the table, listening to one person. They have their devices with them. They even have that little conference planning thing in the middle of that conference call thing in the middle of the floor, and they're talking. I think that when you're planning a virtual meeting or any virtual program, you have to consider what the purpose of the meeting is for. That's why Zoom was so perfect for what we needed to do, because of those 3 elements of engagement, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're having a meeting that's just informational, as that looks like it is, like they're just kind of all looking at him, they could probably done that in an email. Mm-hmm. If you're looking at having a meeting where there's a personal, like a personal connection, you could do that in a conference call or a phone call. But if you have a meeting where you have a large meeting, there are several people, you want them to collaborate, you want them to participate and engage, you want to see people on video, then Zoom is the right platform. And it certainly was the right one for us at that time because it met all of the needs. So I think that, you know, that picture is a typical thing. We should say everything has changed across the top of that, because that's the way we used to do it. And that's an obsolete practice. Right now, we have some promising practices, and Zoom is one of those promising practices that we really all have discovered during this unprecedented time.
Beverly, one of the things, so as a facilitator of one of those small groups during this multi-day convening, one of the things that was actually easier to do was this group participation that you were talking about, right? Because like in the cartoon, everybody's got their device, but they're having this like shared space, and there's maybe somebody on the phone. But in a Zoom environment, as we've all learned, everybody's got their own device, and you can see everybody. Sort of, there's an even playing field. And especially as people have gotten better at Zoom protocols, it's really, I've found to be a benefit of some of this small group work that you're talking about, where you really want to lift up voices and give people a chance to talk. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the way in which you supported the facilitators to make sure that I was able to really have that ability and support to be able to pull off that group participation.
That's really, Megan, talk about the technology piece, because what I was mainly concerned with the ease and the comfort level. I mean, Megan and I are a great team. I was there to I wanted to make sure everybody felt comfortable, that everybody felt included, and all of that, so that all you had to do as a facilitator was to do what you do best. Megan Megan was on the back end, you know, really working it. You want to talk about that, Megan?
Well, actually, before we jump into Megan talking about that, I actually want to elevate something that you maybe do unconsciously, but in terms of supporting facilitators, one of the things that you did was set an expectation for common protocols, which I know is going to be talked about, but you also popped in occasionally.
Yes.
You would pop into our group conversations. You checked in with us both in a pre-service training, a pre-event training, but also we did a debrief, so we always had a chance to kind of connect back. And I do think that the personal connection that you made to everybody comes through in a virtual environment. You're not sacrificing that personal connection that you made. So I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot more to making facilitators be supported than just the technology.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
It's always good to see you pop into a meeting. But so Megan, talk a little bit about what makes this online facilitation so successful.
So part of it, as we talked about it previously, we had over 200 people coming that are going to be attending sessions. And I thought, you know, for what we need to do, and this being the first time, there were many options we walked through. We walked through creating 5 different Zoom meetings, sending out so many different invites, and then people have to log off one Zoom, get on another Zoom. And the more I thought about it, I said, that's not realistic for the amount of people we have, because things are going to get lost in emails. They're going to click the wrong link at the same time. And so one of the best attributes of Zoom was that breakout room session. And in all honesty, I had never used it at that level, but I had faith in it that it could work. And then I guess it was faith in myself that I could make it work. But it was that tech aspect of, instead of people physically walking from room to room, I had a platform in which I walked people in from room to room. And we'll delve a little more about pros and cons of the Zoom tools later, but that was the biggest need for us at that time. Now, breakout rooms won't be appropriate for every kind of meeting or necessary for every kind of meeting, but if you're thinking along the lines of you have a lot of people and you want to put them in specified sessions or groups for a reason, and then bring them all back in, and all they have to do is click one Zoom link for 2 hours, I think that's a wonderful option for them.
So Megan, let me pause on this for just a second, because you said something which is surprising to me, which is that you were not actually familiar with Zoom. So didn't scare you, but talk a little bit about how folks can think about using breakout rooms if they're uncomfortable or worried about the sort of mechanics of it on any platform.
Definitely. I think with any platform, any mechanic, what's key is you have to practice. And so you'll find all our attendees on this webinar right now, they see something completely different from what you and I and Beverly and our Digital Promise team see in the back end. And so you have to become familiar with what it looks like as an attendee, as well as a panelist or a host. And so it's practice. So it's getting your department together. It's getting your group of principals or teachers together and just doing a quick 30-minute run through of seeing what it looks like. And that's what I did a lot with my staff and with Beverly. We just practiced and we practiced with facilitators. And so we showed you guys what it would look like when you get put in breakout rooms. This is what it looks like. And so it's preparing people on the meeting of what to expect in a way.
That's great. Thank you so much. I mean, because I do think that one of the benefits of a virtual environment, as we've been talking about, is this ability to get people talking to each other and to be able to move people seamlessly from large groups to small groups. And so I do think that, you know, it doesn't happen by magic, but with a little preparation, it's certainly successful. What are some of the other features and tools that you were able to use during the 2 days of well-paced agenda? What other tools did you use?
So during this particular one, we only used breakout rooms, but we have actually recently used polling as an association for our governance meeting. And so again, I'm going to harp on, it takes a lot of prep. And so we had to vote on something and we needed our membership. And so we had to verify everyone who registered was a member, and we used a polling feature to pass or not pass those things. And so I want people to really think outside the box when it comes to these tools, and not as an informal way of engagement, but with the right amount of prep and a right amount of thought, you can actually make it so you have real business happening with voting, with, you know, testing the waters with something. I know a lot of school districts are not recently, but thinking about how do we come back in the fall? And they need paid input. And I think it's really important, if you meet with people and they see you and they can vote right then, you get a real consensus of how people feel and they feel heard in those ways.
Yeah, you know,
can I just ask, go ahead, Beverly. Yeah.
We did our, we have to have an annual business meeting. That's a part of our bylaws of our organization. And we typically do that at our summer conference, which was canceled. And there were major governance issues that needed to be heard, reviewed, and voted on. And we used Zoom and we used the polling features right there for people to vote yes or no, right? And by it was a meeting that we would have taken an hour face-to-face, took us 20 minutes.
I am curious, I want to get back to the last couple of tools, but Beverly, as you put together your governance meeting, I'm curious, how did you prepare your board to be comfortable, or how did you address any concerns folks might have had about doing formal business online versus in person?
Well, one easy piece of it was that we didn't have a choice. So they couldn't say, well, we want to come. They didn't have a choice, excuse me. So it was practice, practice, practice. It was sending out information again, doing reminders, making people feel, let's practice and be comfortable with it. And even the raise your hand feature, I honestly would say to anyone who's planning a meeting that has more than 4 people in it, you need to teach people how to use the raise your hand feature, because people will start to talk over one another, and whoever's box lights up first gets to talk, as opposed to someone actually monitoring. That's another thing we forgot to say, Megan, that once everyone was in breakout rooms, there was not just one person doing anything, because the facilitator they were responsible for the engagement in the group. There was another person who was responsible for monitoring the chat and any questions that would come up. And then there was another person taking notes, just to make sure everything was covered, so that it wasn't all on one person. We tried to think of every possibility to make the attendees' experience comfortable for them, especially because it was new to everybody. So everybody's thinking, I want to make sure I can get on. I hope I don't, mess up anything. Well, we tried to do all the fail-proof things we could do to make people feel comfortable with what they were doing. And I still say, even though we were on the back end and it was very busy in the control center that we established at the Wallace Foundation, the ease of the experience had everything to do with the way the expertise and the experience of the facilitators. And then there was Megan and I in the control room, and Megan was furiously, moving. And some people, even though you say, you don't have to sign off, how many people signed off, Megan?
About 30%.
So there she is, trying to put them back in their rooms. And so my role at that time was to try to make everybody that was in the control center with us at the Wallace Foundation feel comfortable. Listen, We've done this. We haven't done this at this magnitude, but we've done this before. Megan would say to me, I need 3 more minutes because people keep signing off and I have to get them back in. And so I would just say, it's okay if the break is longer than we thought it was going to be. It's technology. I mean,
Right.
let's face it, we're all at the mercy of the internet. I mean, we planned it, we planned it, we planned it, but if the internet went out, what would we do?
Yep.
And we even had a plan for that. We want to talk to them about the redundancies.
Yeah, but first let me touch on, Ann, you were talking about, we were discussing prep and how important that is, and to outline what your goals are and if it's reachable by using a virtual platform. I think part of that prep is creating a team. And so not one person can do everything. You can't be the owner of the meeting, facilitate the meeting, watch the chat, especially with more people you have on the meeting. And I think school districts and leaders have to think about, how do we find those people who can sit in on those roles? What the attendees don't see is that we have a wonderful team from Digital Promise on right now with us, who are helping us with this. They're in the background with us, and I just want to give them a shout out, but they're essential to the production and the success of even this webinar. And so you need someone, if they're a facilitator, what they need to focus on is facilitating. They can't be watching the chat, chatting with everyone. You need tech support if you have an IT or IS team, or maybe someone who just knows Zoom really well. And I think this is the time that we start relooking and restructuring people's roles in how we do virtual meetings.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And actually, one of the other tools that I know you're an expert at, because we do it all the time, is the chat bar. And you've actually been chatting with some of the participants. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about using that tool in both formal and informal meetings?
I think Beverly has a wonderful example of this. We're going to get to it, but I think the chat is great for if you have more people on. Even if you use the hand raise function, it's not feasible sometimes that everyone's going to get a chance to talk. So if you have, I don't want to call it back channeling, but if you encourage people, chat amongst each other in the chat, sometimes great ideas come within the chat itself, and then people start formulating ideas all on their own based on the conversation. And so I think the chat can be a really, really great feature. However, maybe you have a sensitive topic and you don't want people back channeling. That's an opportunity not to use the chat, because you don't want those conversations happening if you want them to stick to your message. So it's all appropriate for the type of meeting you're having and the topic content.
Yeah, and I'll just say from my experience, which is I'm always facilitating meetings in person, but now I facilitate meetings all the time online. Like all of the features that you just described, you as the owner or the facilitator can turn on and off. So for example, if we don't want you to back channel because we need your attention, you can actually turn that function off, which makes a huge difference depending on what you're doing. So, I mean, we were doing a giant national meeting with folks from across the country who were expecting to come together. That's for some of the folks on the call who are school leaders. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what recommendations you might have for them, specifically as they're approaching this banana cakes new school year. What recommendations do you have for them, Beverly?
I would say always look at always think about the purpose of your communications. Remember, I talked before, if it's informational, if it's personal, if it's group, you want group think and you want networking participation, you need video. It just depends. And so I just thought about, as a former principal, what ways would I want to use this platform, or could I use this platform moving forward in our new normal, because it's never going to go back the way that it actually was. So you could use it in faculty meetings. And depending on the size of your faculty, you may have to break them up and have 2 separate meetings. But typically, well, it used to be that faculty meetings were mostly informational, but now they're not. We use them for professional development and other things. So in a faculty meeting, I would say that the leader needs to consider engaging several people, that it's not just about them talking. It's about them using the team, as Megan alluded to earlier. Or department meetings. I can't tell you how many times I would say to a department chair, I'm going to come by the meeting today. I'm going to stop by, and on my way out of my office, some other thing happens in a school setting that you can't go. But in a virtual department meeting, I could stop in. Like you saw us pop into the several different meetings along the way. We could pop in, you let everybody know we're there, hear a little bit, get a little bit more information, and pop back out in a very, very convenient way. And then one of our principals said to us the other day that they had a parent meeting. They thought that Zoom was perfect for their parent organization meeting. Typically, they had once a month, 50 people. There were almost 3,000 students in the school, and they were happy with 50 parents coming a month. That was a big success. She had her first parent meeting using Zoom. 100 parents showed up. She had it at the same time. 100 parents showed up. She was able to say, listen, I want to hear from everybody. You can use the chat. If you really want to ask a question, you can, raise your hand and use the feature. That was week 1. So she said, well, during this COVID time, we're going to have these more often. We'll have them every other week. Second time, 125 parents. Because the third time, 150 parents. Because it's convenient for them. They're in their own home. They feel that they can have their voices can be heard in the chat without necessarily having to speak themselves. And she says, like, why would I go back to 50 people at a parent meeting when I can get 150 people, and we can all, and it's not just informational, they have opportunities to share. So she said, oh my goodness, I'm gonna start having speakers at my meetings. Any information that comes up in the chat, I can have a speaker to address those. They can help me set the agenda for the next meeting. These are the things that are changing, that have changed. And there's no need to go back to the old way just because that's the way we used to do it, when we have these tools that can help us communicate better. And we had another principal talk about IEP meetings, and everybody's talking about how do we make sure that we meet the needs of our students who have classifications. But an IEP meeting like this, with the way we're doing it, it's private, it's personal, everybody can be seen. It's not an in-person meeting, but it is a face-to-face meeting. And it's less intimidating, because sometimes parents are intimidated coming into the school. There we all set up with our team of people, and there are 2 of them, it's really in their student. So here we are like this, where everybody's comfortable in their own space, and they feel free to contribute differently. So what we had on the screen was a list of possible ways that Zoom could meet the communication needs and change the way we do business.
Beverly, I love the way you talk about from the beginning, like what is the objective that you're trying to meet, and sort of thinking about what is the best way for that objective to be met, given all the other priorities that you have as well. And I've heard a lot of stories of people who have started off with workarounds, like getting principal supervisors more engaged in a hiring process, which is an impossible task to get a principal supervisor to show up at the central office to sit and do participate in interviews, but not impossible to have them call in for a 30 or 45-minute interview. It's transformational to that process, for example. And I think the same is true about meetings. Now, I am curious about what you feel like is lost when we are reliant on virtual meetings, but I acknowledge that there's no other option right now. So as you think about that moving forward, how do you think about balancing the gains and losses?
That's a good one. I don't know that much. I don't really know that much is lost, because I remember having a meeting with someone and they said, well, we need face-to-face meetings. I'm like, we are face-to-face. I see you and you see me. And actually we're in an environment where people can't talk over one another. You have to really be more orderly and more respectful and more patient, and wait your turn. And so I don't really know that I would say anything is lost. We don't shake hands. We can't shake hands right now. There's so many things that we can't do that we used to say, oh, I need to look a person in the eye. Okay, look me in my eye. Okay, you can't shake my hand, but you can give me a high five. Yeah, I mean, there's all ways that I just don't think anything is really lost. I think things are just changed. And if we don't try to stick to old paradigms, we can move forward very quickly. Now, also let me say, I do believe that, you know, you can get Zoom fatigue. I mean, people are scared. If you were sitting in your office and you would not schedule meetings back to back, you would just not do it. You have to get up, there are comfort breaks, you want to eat, you want to get some water, you just want to move. Yet I find people are just back to back. I'm like, Megan, please don't schedule me like that, because I can't do it. Yep. And so I find that we need to set those expectations and protocols so people don't feel like they've lost something, because people need breaks. I mean, we know. The research is clear. Your eyes need a break. Your mind needs a break. Your body needs to move. And just because we're home, in the comfort of our homes, doesn't mean it's wrong to take a break because we're working. And if we want to be effective, we have to take breaks.
You know, I want to, Megan, turn to some of the logistics questions that Beverly's comments raised for me. I mean, one, I'd love for you to talk about sort of the pieces of virtual meetings that can work for school leaders, but I'd also love for you to talk about how you think about structuring breaks in a formal meeting. And, you know, if we're at a conference, we'll have breakout sessions with a 15-minute transition time in between. How do you think about structuring those kinds of breaks that Beverly's talking about for these virtual meeting spaces?
I think first you consider the times that you're having the meeting. More and more research comes out that really you should not be having virtual meetings for longer. I mean, really the longest you should push it is 2 hours. And so that's really important to think about. And in person, you have the benefit of, if you need to go use the restroom or grab a drink of water, you just get up, quietly let yourself out the back door and come back. And I think in an online space, people feel a little more pressure to sit in front of their computer and prove that they're there. But I think that's where you set the expectation of, if we're on video and you need to excuse yourself to do whatever you need to do, just put your picture up and just come back to the group. And so I think that is a good way, but I think also that can be an excuse if the meeting is not engaging enough, that people put their picture up and then they check their emails. And I don't think you can fault them for that, because people are really busy and they're trying to multitask and they think, well, I'm listening in. So I think that's where we always stress, if it's going to be Zoom, make it engaging, make it so that people have a reason to talk and an opportunity to speak. It shouldn't just be ever someone just speaking to you the whole time for 2 hours and then you log off because you just feel like, well, I could have watched the recording of that later. So I think that that's really important. But back to your point of spacing it out, I would say within those breaks, what you can also do is set up a poll. And so you're still working on the back end. And so I think 5 minutes is an appropriate break within, you know, a 45-minute session is appropriate. If it's longer, if you just have to go longer and you have, like, let's say a lunch break, give people at least 45 minutes to really get up and stretch their legs. And, you know, some facilitators are a lot more laid back. So they'll say, you know what, if you need to get up and walk around while you're listening, like, go ahead and do that. So it's setting the norms of what's appropriate for the facilitator and the attendees.
Yeah,
that's great. I'm curious, Megan, I want to just loop back a little bit to some of the logistics and sort of thinking back to what are some of the logistics that do make meetings successful, and I sort of put a finer point on that for those who are listening who are thinking about converting their traditional in-person meetings into virtual meeting spaces.
So logistics wise, if you're having a meeting that's a town hall open to any of the community and you don't really mind who's coming, you can do an open link, right? From Zoom, I think the licensing can go up to 1,000 attendees. But keep in mind, with the more people getting on, the more broadband internet issues you can have, more people can, you know, be susceptible to not hearing you. So think about those things. But let's say you're having a closed parent meeting and you only want a subset of parents. It's not open to all parents just yet. You just need to talk to a subset or faculty. Then I would use the register feature in Zoom, because then you know exactly who's coming on and you can even deny access to if the wrong person gets the link to register. So thinking about that way. So for our PLC back in March, we used the registration process because we limited the number of people who could join per district. And I needed to know exactly who was coming into the meeting for the breakout sessions. And so just thinking about those things, about how important is it to you that you know who's coming, and how important is it to your program where you place those people. If you're just having random breakout rooms and you just want everyone to meet and you're randomly going to assign, it doesn't really matter. But it's all about the intent and process and goals of your meeting.
Megan, how long did it take you? We had 230 little over people. How long did it take you on the back end with the registration process? Because I would see you with all those Excel sheets on your screen, and I would say, oh no, man, how's this working? But you had a system.
I had a system, but it did take me about 8 to 10 hours over the weekend, just making sure everyone was right. You know, you try to cross your T's and dot your I's, but some things I didn't think about within the 4 days. And so definitely having a cutoff. If you need to know who's coming to that meeting and you need to plan around the attendees of that meeting, you need a cutoff date for when they can register. But also keep in mind, you're going to have people whose meetings get canceled that day and they say, well, I'll attend your meeting instead. Like, how do I log on? So it's planning for the unexpected and being able to roll with those kinds of things. And not stressing yourself out. I think everyone is really understanding that there is no perfect meeting.
No.
And that should not be the goal of your meeting, is a perfect meeting.
No, and actually one of the ways in which virtual meetings are not perfect in general is, specifically to the time of COVID, is everybody's at home and has coworkers and dogs and whatever happening. And parents and teachers are busy, had been busy doing virtual school. But another reality, actually Gary mentioned this in the chat, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about it, Megan, is just the reality of internet coming and going, and how to make sure that you don't lose each other. And I'll just throw in that I'm always double connected. I'm always connected on the internet, and I'm also dialed in on my phone in case one of those goes down. I'm able to stay connected to the conversation no matter what. But Megan, what's your thinking about hardwiring or getting close to the modem or anything like that?
So definitely, if you're a facilitator or a co-host or host of the meeting, you need redundancies, right? People don't choose to have their meetings go out on purpose or their internet fall out on purpose. But I would hate for anyone to be in a situation where they're in part of a really important meeting, they're right in the middle of their speech and they cut out. And people are just looking around like, what are we going to do now? And so that's part of the planning you need to do. If that were to happen, who's going to step in as the co-host and take over? Because the last thing you need is a bunch of blank faces on the screen looking around at each other. So I would say hardwiring is definitely the safer choice. But just testing your internet. I mean, you can go on websites and just test the speed of your broadband. And so doing that before a meeting, getting on before your Zoom meeting, I would say 15 to 20 minutes in advance, just making sure your camera's working, your speakerphone's working. And Zoom has all those tools on the bottom where you can test your speaker and video for yourself. So you don't really need help to do that either.
Yeah, this point of redundancy is so key, because I think about it as we're all developing expertise in this platform, and we have natural redundancies when we're in person because people can step in immediately, and but there's the same level of planning that would go into an in-person meeting would need to go into a virtual
Absolutely.
meeting as well.
Not more, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me actually just remind the folks who are watching and listening that I'm happy to take some additional questions in the chat. And while we're waiting for some of those questions to come up, I have a question that I've really been struggling with as I've been thinking about planning my future meetings, all of which are still virtual. I'm not planning anything in person yet. When we did this meeting in early March, and we did this like rapid turn from this 230 in-person meeting to 230 person virtual meeting, that was at the very beginning. And I think people gave us a lot of grace.
Yes.
You did a great job putting it together, but it was all new and everybody was just trying to figure it out. So given that we're now all very familiar with multiple platforms and are getting used to doing this kind of work, what are some of the things that you might do differently now in the environment that we're in than you did before? Beverly, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I would modify the session, the duration of the session. So we started with the open plenary, which we needed because we needed that time to get people into there. And it was informational. And then we had the breakout sessions. I probably, knowing what I know now, would have made the breakout sessions longer and the plenary sessions shorter. I mean, I know Megan needed the time, but now that we've done, and we were new, we didn't know. We thought, let's take as much as we can from the face-to-face and move it over to virtual, and it should be fine. But now that we're doing this for a long time, I definitely would have asked for consideration around the opening session. Because people love the breakout sessions. They love to be able to share. They learn a lot, they network, and people want to talk to one another. And usually plenary sessions are not that. So get that information out quickly or in a different way, and then give more time for the collaboration engagement piece.
That is such a great point. And takes advantage of the virtual space. Like, what's the benefit of the virtual space?
Exactly.
How about you, Megan? What would you do differently today, or are you doing differently today as your planning
Definitely
meeting?
we altered our timelines for how long our meetings last. That was the big one. It's just we're all learning. While some aspects of being online make it much easier to meet for people, it's a lot harder sometimes to stare at your screen all day. And also getting people, and I think a lot of people are, but getting people comfortable with being on camera. I think a lot of people were camera shy initially because, you know, a lot of people aren't used to being on camera. I'm still not used to being on camera, but it's once you have a norm of everyone's on camera and it's okay, it adds to that engagement. Because when you have a group of 10 sharing about work plans or where you're going in your principal pipeline and you're all pictures or all names, it just doesn't feel as intimate and you're really engaging with someone.
Right.
That's a great point.
You know what else? The redundancy piece too. I mean, if you're having a big meeting and everybody's in the same, thank goodness nothing happened on the day that our command center was in one spot, even though Megan did have someone remotely. But if I had to do it all over again, I would have a few people remotely, because if anything went out with the internet there, it could still go on without, I mean, we were just, crossed our fingers and we didn't really know any better. So everything was just kind of working for us. But if we had to do it again, we would have to have people remotely so that if anything happened, it would continue to go on without. And Megan alluded to that with the co-host.
Yeah, no, that's really important. This concept of redundancy just keeps coming back. We've got a couple of questions that I want to bring up from the chat. One is a question, did we use a collaborative tool such as Blackboard or Google Docs? We didn't in this meeting, but can you talk about if you've used it in some of your other meetings since then and how that's worked out for you?
We haven't used Whiteboard. Megan and I haven't used it together, but I've certainly participated in meetings with them. You know what? I participated in a meeting where they put a link in the chat. I don't have dual screens here with me. I just have my small Surface. So it was difficult for me to switch back and forth with that. I wasn't a fan of having to click on a link in the box and then minimize my screen and all this other, and then people were talking at the same time. So I wouldn't recommend that unless you're using a different feature, or you say to people, you need 2 screens or you need a larger screen so that when you split it, it's usable. I mean, I don't wear glasses all the time, but because I'm sitting in front of my screen all the time, I have to, because it's just not big enough.
That is exactly right. And you got a little affirmation there, Beverly, that was what the questioner, Diane Walker, was concerned about. What about you, Megan? What's your take on these collaborative tools?
I completely agree with Beverly. Know what people have going for them in their home systems, especially with your staff, because you don't want to make it an obstacle to meet. You don't want someone to say, oh, here's another thing I have to do while being on Zoom, and focus on something else. And so be really strategic about what's the point. And remember, once you send the invite for the meeting, you've started the meeting. So you can send out Google Docs ahead of time and ask for questions and then review them as a facilitator. So don't ever think that your meeting is the one time to do everything all at once. Okay. And you can be collaborative. Google Docs are great because everyone can work on them, right? Real time. And so think about it like that and build your team for that meeting leading up to the meeting as well.
That's great. Tracy's story raised a question which I love, which is, we just talked about how important it was to incorporate breaks, but how do you keep people from going away? So how do you ensure that you don't lose them during those breaks?
I would say engagement. I would say have enough opportunities for them to engage and not just watch the show. The polling, I love. The opportunities to talk to one another. And even in some meetings, sometimes you can put too many people in a breakout room and people can hide. But if you put 5 people, 7, 8 people, then you can see everybody. It just is more conversational. So I would say engagement strategies is the key to that.
That's great. Megan, anything to add?
Just reminding people the meeting doesn't end until 2. We expect everyone to be on, conversation. We have been strategic in placing you in these rooms, and without you, we can't have them. We hope everyone stays on, and just remind.
Encouragement.
Yeah.
Tell them again and tell them again. I'll share, I converted another meeting with, where we had these long lunch breaks, like we had an East Coast break and a West Coast break. And during the long breaks, we actually had a Google Drive that we asked the participants to upload pictures to, and then we just ran a slideshow during the break with music, just like at the beginning and the end of this webinar. And I think that saved some people from dropping off, but it never saves everybody from dropping off. Right. So, Megan, one of the things that you did really well during that crazy conversion meeting was just be a presence, so that people always knew that if they dropped and there was a problem, that they could come back to you. Okay, one last question. Do you have any experience transferring a Zoom meeting to a Zoom webinar? And what was that experience like?
No, I don't think we have. Have we?
Zoom meeting, you want to keep in mind, it's for engagement. You're bringing a group of people together. What we're on right now is a webinar. We're a panelist on a webinar. That's how everyone sees us, chatting with us. And so keep in mind, as a webinar, it's not as engaging for the whole group. And so that's the one caveat that you want to decide, what is the goal? Again, I feel like I keep repeating myself, but these are, what is the goal? And so if it's informational with a bit of engagement, like everyone's chatting with us and sending us questions, great, webinars are great. But if you want the whole 100 people to engage, to be talking, to be seeing each other, then you want to do a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, and you might want to get a product out of the meeting. There may be a product that you want. Then a webinar is not going to do it. You need a Zoom meeting where people are talking and somebody is writing, and at the end of it, you have something that you've created as a result of the meeting, and a webinar won't do that.
That's great. Well, Beverly and Megan, I know I'm deeply grateful for the leadership that you showed when we converted this meeting in March, and I know you'll join me in thanking the Wallace Foundation for the support for that project, as well as for this communication. So just thank you guys so much, Beverly and Megan, for sharing your experience and expertise with us. From the Digital Promise folks, we, in the series, Education Leadership for a Digital World, we hope you'll join us for our next webinar with Doug Fisher, who's the Professor of Educational Leadership at San Diego State University, and Fred Brown, who's the Deputy Executive Director at Learning Forward. They're going to come on and discuss strategies for integrating equity into professional learning opportunities. That webinar is July 14th at 1 p.m. Same time, same channel. And please, as you exit, do take a moment to complete the survey. That helps guide the development of future webinars in this series. We really thank you for your attention and questions, and wish you lots of luck in the work that you do with your teachers, staff, and communities every day. Thanks, and take care. Bye-bye.